possible PS5 rumors.
Hot off the rumor mill. Hello and welcome to Triangle Squared, a PlayStation podcast. I'm your host, Brett Beck, and alongside me, Mr. Saul
Bridges, bringing you a lucky episode 54.
Saul, how'd your week go?
Pretty bad.
Real quick. I heard that,
I've been sick, coincidentally, with exactly the same thing Blaze has, which...
It's your turn.
What do you mean?
It's your turn to go through, like, the
hell
2 weeks that I went through.
bladder problems.
Yeah.
So... it's just been terrible. We haven't talked a lot, and I guess, we might as well get into what we've been playing, but before that, we should...
yeah, we got to do our intro. So we are Triangle
there.
Squared, a PlayStation podcast. We come to you every Monday in video format on YouTube at 10 p.m.
Nope.
10 a.m. PST, 12 p.m. CST. Thanks, all. And we go to podcast services.
Except Spotify, so,
working on that.
Yeah. Oh, are you really?
Working on that.
Okay, we'll see how well this works. So
we will update as soon as that happens. If
podcast,
so, that'd be good.
Let us love you, and then you love us in return. If you guys like the episode, if you enjoy these conversations, be sure to drop a like on the video. I hate saying that because that's the most standard YouTube thing to say, but hey, we do want to see if you enjoy it. If you don't, always write us a review on any podcast service you may find. iTunes is always up there.
Well, this is what I say. I mean, yeah, that is the most standard YouTube thing to say, sure, but I mean, call to action. Sometimes
sure
it's good.
Yeah,
I know I've been watching content every now and then I love,
right?
And even knowing that if I subscribe to it, I would thoroughly enjoy it, I will not subscribe to it or like it because I don't think about it.
Right,
you just move along. But with that being said, the biggest reason, is that if you like us and you want to help support us in any ways that you can, there's a lot of free ways that you can help us get up there, and that way being liking our videos, subscribing our videos, specifically on the YouTube platform, will give us a higher search ranking. So
yeah.
on the back end of the way these things work, that's kind of how that works. I mean, a lot of people who peruse YouTube know that. Some people don't. I mean, it's just one of those things where you find yourself on the platform. Podcast service is a little different. They take reviews and worded reviews
and downloads, actually, according to a couple of the advertisers I looked into.
Popularity, stuff like that. So anyway, moving on. Saul, what have you been playing this week? Because it's been kind of lopsided for me up until yesterday.
Yeah, it's actually really lopsided for me too. We played Far Cry Monday night.
Did you beat it?
No.
Blasphemy.
Yeah, well, we played multiplayer.
I know, but I'm saying, did you beat the game at all yet?
No, I've been sick. So like you and me, and then all the boys in the Discord, we're playing the multiplayer for a while, and then I hopped on Rainbow Six for a game with Jonathan, which I may do tonight. I don't know yet.
Was that Monday or that was Wednesday or Thursday?
No, it
wasn't it?
No. It had to have been Tuesday because we recorded the Impressions episode Tuesday, and then we went and played Far Cry the same night. But really, that's it. Like, I played Far Cry that night with you guys. I played Rainbow Six with Jonathan, and I woke up feeling like garbage on like Wednesday, and that's when I kind of went to the doctor and found out everything that was wrong with me. I kind of laid in bed a lot since then. I did not play a lot of video games. I did play one round of Fortnite on PS4. I have a guy at work who's a friend of mine who was telling me about kind of going back and like the updates and stuff they've done. And I thought, I might as well check it out. And then instead of complaining about the end game being nothing but build-offs, I thought it'd be interesting to actually get good at it, and maybe it'd actually be fun. So instead of criticizing it like I was, saying that like I don't like it just because it's the same thing of it being around one fortress, it's like, well, maybe it could be around my fortress if I built it the right way and stuff like that. So I was kind of looking into that, of course, in incognito mode, because you don't want your YouTube filled up with Fortnite videos. There's too many of them. There's too many arrows pointing to things in those videos and thumbnails. It's not fun.
Trust me, man. That's out the window. I deal with Kyrie and all of her Minnie Mouse and stuff coming up on my YouTube, and I just, I just try and make sure that's not on the Nartec one, so that we don't deal with that.
But that's really it. Like those 3 games, like probably less than 10 hours total of gaming this week, which is really rare for me. I plan on playing some Fortnite when I get home from here before we go out and get dinner, and I plan on playing some Rainbow Six tonight if Jonathan's going to be online. And I will go back to Far Cry, but like I'm not in the mood right now. I'm not Far Cried out, but I'm kind of a little burnt out on the game in a weird way. It's more so of just wanting to play something different.
I get you, but I do think carrying over from our impressions episode, I mean, this would be like just a small kind of hit to it. I mean, time to call back to it. It's like, I mentioned the other day, is like the game starts to wear you thin by the time that you start getting through the game and realize that a lot of the characters are pretty shallow and thin.
In a way, yeah.
Even Joseph. As you continue to go on.
Did you watch the movie that came out for free?
I didn't.
It's not bad.
I mean, I'm sure it's not. If it makes you feel, I never watched. I love Final Fantasy 15. I mean, I say I loved. I really, really liked Final Fantasy 15, but I didn't watch Kingsglaive.
Well,
I did watch the
full-length movie, I think, too.
I did watch Brotherhood or whatever, where it was the anime style one that they did. I actually liked that one. That was pretty cool. But point being, I mean, I get where you're going with it. It's just
something different. And Fortnite, actually going back, they have updated it quite a lot. Like, it actually looks better. Like, they
people are talking
textures
about
on it and everything.
That's why it's killing PUBG, is that the frequency of updates, the frequency of map add-ins, stuff like that.
They've added so many weapons since I've been back. There's like a vending machine now you can trade materials and get weapons out of. That was
Borderlands
weird.
of it. You know what I mean? I saw that and I was like, that just makes me think of Borderlands.
It is kind of Borderlands. I did not think of that, but then again,
and the art style already teeters.
You should really try it out. I think you'd enjoy it.
I think I still have it on my console.
It's free if you don't. But what have you been playing? My week was pretty sad. I'm sure yours was better.
Okay, so I played a lot. I beat Far Cry 5, so I told you I was really close to it. I'm at 98% of the trophies. Just need to do the grinding or the stupid multiplayer trophy, which is like the arcade heat. I can't remember what it is. Yeah, but you have to win 10 featured maps on multiplayer, and we're trying to do it through boost groups, so we don't have to deal with a bunch of BS and playing the game mode that I don't like.
Our friend boost groups, though. We're not.
It's listening to boost groups. Thanks, everybody. I'll shout them out. We got Bobame, whatever you call it.
Bobame.
Whatever. We have Liam. We have Blake. Then we have
Liam's
wife / girlfriend. I'm not actually sure what their marital status is, or if
it's just a PS4 controller.
Well, no, that was that time. The first time she actually was with us.
Oh, see, I've only played with you guys once.
And
I'm not going for the platinum, so I don't really care.
Then we have Babame or whatever, his neighbor.
I forgot about that too.
Yeah. So anyway, it's been all right. You have to have 6 people. It's still just a dread because it's a grind. It's boring to kind of do, and then you end up trying to screw around while you're doing it, which starts to slow you down. But outside of that, I did finally start. I said I was going to be more into the PS Plus Pals things this week or this month, since I didn't really get to. I meant to and didn't get around to Bloodborne, and some of that was my bad. Some of that was the game not wanting to load from my disc for some reason. But I have started Mad Max. I'm further now than just that, but I have one of the outposts under my control that I've broke free, and I've done a couple of other missions, and I'm on my way to a new area. The game's interesting. One of the things I constantly heard is that it's a good game, and I was like, okay, well, I mean, let me figure this out. It carries with it the same problems I have with with Avalanche's games that I am familiar with, which is the Just Cause series, where it's poorly optimized in the sense of the way it looks. It runs fine, thankfully. It doesn't have a lot of frame drops that I've experienced. I am playing on a Pro with boost mode active, so that may play into it. I'm not sure. But it's fun. It's weird because it has that Warner Brothers thing going for it. Like I talked about this on the Discord, where Warner Brothers, starting with Batman, going forward into the Middle Earth games, and even carrying forward this one. There's like all Ubisoft games share some kind of DNA.
Yeah.
These all share a DNA that's kind of similar to Ubisoft, but they're trying to play their own ways on it. And I just feel it carrying forward. And it's interesting playing this game because I tend to avoid Ubisoft games because they all start to feel the same.
In a way, yeah.
And I've played enough WB games lately that it's just, I'm not disliking it. And the car combat being added in actually is a really nice addition because it gives it a little bit of a break, just like how the car combat in Arkham Knight was like a nice break from it just doing, flying around everywhere and punching the hell out of people. And I mean, yes, I do think that they slightly overused the Batmobile, and there's a chance that maybe they'll slightly overuse car combat. Who the hell knows? Not sure, but I'm hoping that the game continues to be fun. Right now, I'm having fun with it, even if it's just trying to get complete grips with it, because there's like multiple upgrade systems in the game, which is fun. I mean, as far as RPG elements go, more so than even the original Middle Earth went. So that's pretty much what I've played. I'm gonna download Trackmania Turbo just out of curiosity. I've downloaded Terra. I plan to start trying out Terra, seeing what that's all about.
Screen Terra.
I know, but your MMO experience comes mostly from Final Fantasy XIV, which is like a really unbalanced MMO experience. So as long as the game's fun and good and it looks like a slightly easy platinum, as long as I can have fun playing it going towards the platinum, then...
I'm telling you, I don't mean like screen tearing every now and then. I mean constant. That's why I can't play it. I just
find it surprising there's already people who've platinumed the game. It can't be that bad at running.
I guarantee, like, I'll Google it right now.
I mean, it's fine. I don't need to see it, and I don't want to waste podcast time on it. But my point being, I'm going to try it out regardless of your opinion, because, we were talking about don't always listen to reviewers, so I can't always listen to your opinion.
I mean, all these complaints on this forum right here, it needs VSync. It really does. That's the problem right there.
Okay, well, maybe it does, but that's
probably running too high, but... I guess you want me to go ahead and drop into the drop, good sir?
Yeah, go ahead.
Sure. We have Deep Ones for PS4 and PS Vita. We have Dusty Raging Fist for PS4. We have Extinction for PS4, out digitally and retail. We have League of Evil for PS4 and PS Vita. Masters of Anima for PS4. Operation Warcade for PSVR. Owlboy for PS4. Project Nimbus Code Mirai for PS4. Mirai, something like that. Regalia of Men's and Monarchs for PS4. Rick and Morty Virtual Reality for PSVR. Rogue Aces for PS4 and PS Vita. We have Starlit Adventures for PS4. Super Amazeballs for PS Vita. Or PSVR, I'm sorry.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Super Dale Deluxe for PS4. Time Carnage for PSVR, and that's the last on the list. A lot of PSVR games this week coming out.
Virtual reality is what I'm aiming for the most. I thoroughly enjoyed Accounting Plus, and that was definitely made with the same sense of humor and style of all of Justin Roiland stuff. So I'm definitely excited to hop into that. And I mean, of course, I haven't played it yet. So while I wait for more Rick and Morty on Adult Swim, if it ever happens, which I'm sure it will. I get to experience a little bit of it in VR. And why not? Because it's made by Alchemy Labs, which are the same people that handled Job Simulator and are upcoming Vacation Simulator. So I'm excited. I love those games. And they are, even though they're probably not the best examples of how immersive that VR can be, it's prime examples of how fun VR can be. Yeah. From very stupid things. Like, it's just... I don't know what it is. They're very, very menial things, but they're fun to screw around within the worlds of. I don't know.
Just like what was it? Making coffee and Job Simulator was fun.
Yeah, like being a mechanic. Like what they're doing is they're taking menial tasks and making them fun by having stupid jokes, and like when you turn the radio on in Job Simulator when you're in the car thing, all the commercials are really dumb. Yeah, and like making fun of humans. I don't know. They're acting like they're radio from the time. Yeah. It was really funny. It had like weird ad lib and stuff. Kind of like, even though I don't play them very often anymore, or really, I guess, at all, the Grand Theft Auto games, I used to always love listening to the radio stations because you're like, what the hell are these people saying?
It's pretty crazy, actually, for those. So,
anyway.
Their parody on those is really fun.
I mean, what's your game? If there was one that was coming this week that you had to pick up, what would you say you're most excited for?
I don't really think there is one this week.
I was curious.
Owlboy looks good, and I do mean that. Like, it actually looks really good. The art style for that game's great. Lacks a little bit in substance, though, from what I played on PC. Steam has it logged for me for like 4 hours, I think. So, like, not enough to keep me going after that. So, I think...
I find certain games hit home better on consoles, though, just because of the nature in which you end up playing them. But were you playing it with a controller on PC? Yeah. Then I guess it probably won't change. Now, that feels like a game that would be great on handheld. I'm surprised you didn't pick it up on Switch.
And I'm kind of glad I didn't now and waste the money, because it was free in the Humble Bundle on PC. So I didn't actually pay anything for it.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's why. Okay, I got you.
Yeah, it's kind of one of those things that's, like, it looks really good, and it plays fine. There's nothing really wrong with it performance-wise.
It's just not hitting it for you?
It's kind of empty, yeah.
Okay, that's fine. We'll go ahead and hop into news real quick.
Yes, sir.
First and foremost, not like you don't know, pretty much everybody probably does, but PS4's exclusive Spider-Man has been given a release date, planned to swing around New York starting September 7th. On top of a release date, Game Informer has a lot of new gameplay for anybody that's interested. If you want to see it, it doesn't look like they're digging in any story territory. It's a lot of free roam and kind of letting you get to grips with, like, if you want to see exactly how the combat system's going to work out, which looks really fun.
What about QTEs?
Dude, there's not been a new QTE yet, and I'm going to get to that.
I was trying to segue you.
Oh, well, fine, Saul. Give me a little two-wheeled thing that I stand up on and lose my balance. But
I guess I will.
When asked on Twitter about QTEs in the game, Insomniac responded by saying, quote, "There are very, very minor points of the game used at cinematic set pieces,"
which is
quote.
Fantastic
so
news.
That cures all of Saul's woes and problems, which is, I'm hoping, good.
I'm super excited for the game, especially after. I mean, I was excited for QTE. Like, even if it was QTEs in it, like,
it was just going to be slightly QTE. Let down.
Yeah, I'm not against, like, severely against QTEs.
Oh, I know, but it just made you a little more tepid on it when you saw it, and I remember that.
Because I don't prefer QTEs over actual.
I think QTEs always have a spot in games, but yeah, I don't want a extremely QTE heavy game,
especially in a game like Spider-Man,
in an open world environment. So that would be too much, closed off, more linear experiences. I get going QTE, but I mean, I don't know. It is always interesting to me. Actually, as a quick break-in, there's a scene in Mad Max that's going on, and I'm like, why didn't they just let me do that? Like, it's just driving the car and showing off a bunch of explosions, but if they were going to do that, why didn't I just do that and you show off the explosions beside me?
Yeah.
And I was like, that would have been a cooler way for me to just, every now and then you play a game and you're like, I know that you're doing this for some form of cinematic purpose, but why couldn't you just let me do it?
That's the big problem I have.
And be cinematic by swooping the camera in weird ways and stuff,
Yeah, that's the point I was making the E3 watch-along we did, is that like a lot of them looked particularly like QTE styled things, and I was just like, I hope it's not, because at that point, like, just let me
some of it may have just been on-screen button prompt to show you what you were supposed to be hitting in the moment, but I don't know. So that's the thing. The context of what we were seeing it as makes some of it was undoubtedly QTE.
Yeah.
Some of it looked like it was like, I think you're in control there. Maybe it's just telling you to hit triangle to vault over something, because instead of like showing you above something,
like it's a tutorial thing, it's
basically. Like, and who knows? That's the problem. I mean, we'll see when the game really releases, but even just hearing them, I mean, obviously they're addressing it,
right?
And they probably wouldn't be addressing it if it was going to be a big issue, or they would be addressing it in a more defensive manner instead of using this particular language, which I think was smart. And one of their things was that, have you seen a QTE section in any of the Game Informer footage? And you haven't.
No.
So it's going to be small, and I kind of understand that. So good on them. Next up, speaking during an anniversary panel for the game, Nier Automata producer Yosuke Saito mentioned that he'd like to work with the team again, and that they might be able to, quote, open another door in the Nier universe, end quote, at some point in the future, and asked fans to look forward to that. Yoko Taro, though, also mentioned the possibility of creating a new IP, which may or may not be with that team. There's literally no way to tell.
Hopefully it's in the near future.
Oh, yeah, good one, Saul. Also at PAX, Saul's favorite game ever is Final Fantasy 15. There was a panel where they talked about the future of the game. Here are some key points. In future updates, they hope to add character creation to the main story, so your character will replace Noctis. I'm not a fan of that.
I don't understand
that. I do not
like
Final
that Fantasy game.
But hey, if maybe they've gotten really good feedback on Comrade's character creation, because that's what they were talking about. It'll be basically making an avatar like you do in Comrades, but it'll replace Noctis as the main character. Or is
Noctis such a shallow character that anything could replace him?
I don't like when they do that. Maybe he is, but I still think by having a defined character model and backdrop history, I feel like it pulls together when it's not a pre-made character, which goes back to my Far Cry 5 complaints, which is funny. We were talking and Liam was like, at first I thought you were being kind of hard in the game for it. He goes, but the more I played, I was like, why am I the character? Like, why did I need to make my own character for this?
Yeah.
And I stand behind that. I think sometimes character creation is just to add it in for the reason of trying to make the game look better to someone who may not want to try it, which, I mean, I guess whatever. It's a business. You got to do what you got to do. But on top of that, Comrades will be getting a standalone release this summer with an update adding new bosses, raid bosses, and battle challenges. Apparently, battle challenges will have multiple bosses, which is interesting, whereas normal raids will just have one boss. And the 4 DLC that we talked about that the game will be getting are actually slated now to be released in 2019 as all the rest of these updates come in. The 4 DLC are going to be Episode 1, Arden, The Conflict of the Sage, Episode Side Story, Aranea, The Beginning of the End. I'm glad to see she's getting one. She was actually one of the cooler side characters. Episode 2, Luna Freya, The Choice of Freedom. Hopefully that helps World End and get more time with Luna Freya. That was one of his biggest complaints. Which, I mean, I get. She's oddly sparsed into the game. I don't want to say too much, but Episode 3, Noctis, The Final Strike, is the last one. The lineup is named Dawn the Future and will bring an alternate grand finale that doesn't override the existing ending, but will be an option for fans who want to, quote, challenge fate.
This is cut content, right? This has to be. There's no way this game has had this much DLC that they've just made. Like, this has to be originally
this is
2019.
Now you're dealing with,
No, I know, though, but it's like
the
fact they have all the stories laid out for this, right? Like, this has to have been a part of the original game they had to cut.
I disagree. I don't think it had to have been. Personally, I don't.
So you think that their time making the fishing VR game was more than important than this? because then that means that they've poorly slotted their time.
What do you mean in terms of
like they made this dumb VR fishing game when there's actually more story content.
Well, hold on, why is it a dumb VR fishing game? It's just an extra experience. I guarantee you, not a big team was working on that.
But I know, but I'm just saying, like this whole thing right here. There's 4 new DLCs, and they all seem to be heavily story focused.
All of the DLC is
so why weren't these
heavily
first,
story focused?
Except like the VR stuff, and like
they've already done 4 of them. They already did Ignis, Prompto, and
no, I know, but I'm just saying, like this seems like this all was slated to be in the original game.
I don't think so. Now maybe the Ignis, Prompto, and but I don't think so, because they don't even take place within their side stories. They don't take place within the confines of the game's world or game setup or anything that's pertinent to the main story itself, but they're extra world building that's happening to give you more insight as into why these characters may have these motivations. Some of these seem to play a little more into the main story. But I at least know that. See, I think that they always had plans to do DLC. Or I say always. I think that they wanted to see how well the game did. The game did well. They already had plans that if the game did well, let's do DLC. Here's the DLC we're going to do. People seem to like the sidekicks, but you don't learn enough about them throughout the game. So hey, what we're going to do is we're going to give you all 3 of the sidekicks that Noxus has. We're going to give you each a story of them to help you understand why they will, like some of their character motivations and some of their outside story outside of this game.
But like they couldn't find a way to put that in the game and work well.
I mean, I could see maybe not. Now, maybe they could have worked in there, but I think some of them also took place after the story, which makes sense as to make it DLC, because I'm fairly positive, and I don't want to say too much, but I'm fairly positive the episode Prompto takes place after the main story, and it's in regards to something he learns throughout the main story, so it makes sense for him to have to do it later.
See, now something like that is, but like when you have 4 main protagonists.
And I think some of those stories also took place in between, I don't want to say too much again, so I'm gonna
in between the events of the game.
Yeah, but I'm going to back off and just leave it at that.
Well,
I'll tell you later.
It feels like that like you have 4 main protagonists, and like you couldn't do a good enough job.
Well, okay. First of all, I will say
character adeptness.
I will say Arnea, Lunafreya, and Arden have been heavily requested to get stories. People really liked Arnea, and I guarantee you that's part of why we got that.
But what I'm saying is they're requesting because they didn't do a good job of putting these characters stories in the game in the first place.
It also depends
which just
on
makes me wonder why they're like where they cut because.
Yeah, and I get the wonder. I just don't think. I mean, you haven't even beat the game, so I wonder.
That's true, but like, at this point, there's no motivation because the story is really lacking. Like what World was kind of saying.
Don't get me wrong. The story is lacking. It's not a perfect game by any standard. It's a fun game. The story is enough to give me the motivation to keep moving, at least on Noctis' side. But the other characters are nice to see fleshed out. Now, of course, does that mean? Yeah, we already know they shipped the unfinished game. Everyone knows that. I mean, it's just a sad truth. The game was unfinished. They've already patched a lot of it to fix Chapter 13, which I didn't think was really broken, and it was actually one of my favorite chapters because of how different it was. But I get why some people would not like the pacing chose with it. But that being said, I mean, I think that there's no way that was cut content. I can't imagine that. These stories are not long.
I lose a lot of faith in Square.
Even episode Prompto, I mean, I know they're not like more than 4 hours, if even that.
And they're $15 a piece or $99 or $10 a piece.
I mean, for 4 hours, yeah, that's about right. I mean, the Dishonored DLC were both like 4-hour campaigns, and even Dishonored Death of the Outsider was like 6 hours, and it was $30. So, I mean, and that's just a reskin. I mean, Uncharted Lost Legacy is a reskin.
To charge that high of a price for like. This also wasn't asked for though. Like in the beginning, nobody asked for these characters to have DLCs. When they launched, people were surprised they were a thing.
Yeah, so, but I'm saying that, and I get that. But now the social opinion has changed because actually, I remember even seeing anecdotally and like through people I do know who have beat the game who liked it, and then also checking on different like forums that I occasionally get on when you see these news. A lot of people turn their opinions around based on the DLC. I've not played them. I have no opinion of the DLC. I'm fine with where I stand on the game. I've debated, like, hey, going back in. One quick thing I wanted to throw in is that they talked about for the Windows edition, there's going to be a mod editor. There's going to be a level editor that you can make your own levels and stuff.
They have their own...
Did you see that somebody made, in the game, basically Hot Shots Golf? And it looked awesome, and I would actually enjoy that. And I had a full bar underneath. You shot it said "nice shot," and you had a point that you're trying to aim to. I thought that was a really cool.
What is it called when you try to test a game? Oh, they had their own benchmarking thing that you could do in that game.
Oh
too.
Yeah, that makes sense.
It's kind of like Metro does, and Ashes of Singularity. A lot of people don't know that Ashes of Singularity is an actual game. It's like an actual game, and it's tested as one of the highest like ranking benchmarks you would want to do for a game.
Yeah, PC gaming's crazy.
But yeah, that's actually like RTS style game. Maybe not RTS, but.
Yeah.
Space weird game.
Moving on, PSVR and Killing Floor fans can look forward to Killing Floor Incursion coming to the platform on May 1st for $29.99 and will include all of the post-launch content from the original Vive and Rift releases. No word on control schemes yet, but I've not played Killing Floor 2 yet, nor have I played the first one, but the idea of playing Killing Floor with the aim controller, if it works really well,
that'd be cool.
Sounds extremely fun.
Killing Floor was pretty fun for a free game, especially.
Oh, yeah, because it was Killing Floor 2. I mean, I have it. It was free a couple months back or whatever. I mean, probably a year ago. But, yeah, I remember getting it. I still have it in my list. I rolled through it the other day. I was like, maybe one of these days I'll play it. So that may be one of the ways I do it. I am trying to support VR, but at the same time, I'm trying to have time to play everything. So
yeah.
Next up, Drinkbox Studios have announced, and dream-crushingly so, I'm so sad.
No Vita.
That Guacamelee 2 will launch as a PS4 console exclusive, meaning it's coming to PC and PS4 sometime this summer. That pretty much crushes my dreams of Vita, because even if they're working, they specifically said the reason it's coming to PS4 is they have a deal with Sony to launch a song alongside them first. I can almost just seriously doubt this comes to Vita ever, which is sad. That's where I want to play it, but that's okay. Next up, again, something that probably everyone knows, but it's worth touching on, is that the Spyro Reignited Trilogy, as it is being named, has been officially announced and is being developed by Skylanders developer. Also, not surprisingly, because they've had basically reign of the Spyro IP for a little while. Toys for Bob is the name of that developer.
Yeah.
The game is set to release on release for $39.99 on September 21st. Interestingly, rumors, if you remember, constantly stated that it would have a 1-year exclusivity window on PS4 similar to Crash, and it does not.
Nope.
It was announced for PS4 and Xbox One same day release. Interesting.
I'm super excited for it. I actually showed Annie that that was one of the things of news that I actually got to intake this week when I was just kind of laying in bed. That was kind of the cool thing.
Hard to miss, you know what I mean?
That's true, because
they had such a weird campaign to get this out. Did you see the eggs going out that they were sending to people?
Right, yeah, to IG, and they sent a purple
and it was the whole Falcon McBob thing, which makes sense because Toys for Bob and all this stuff.
I'm super excited for it. September has just gotten that much better with that and Spider-Man all up in it. It's going to be another one of those months like May where I have Dark Souls and Detroit. But
Way too much.
We'll get through it.
One of the other things I wanted to talk about with that real quick is that if you haven't seen this already, for people who own the Crash Bandicoot Insane Trilogy, you can actually open the game and there's basically a cheat code at the front screen. And you'll see the same trailer, but you just see it in full detail on the game, which I thought was cool. It'll show you the full trailer and original asset.
Oh, that's really cool.
Yeah. Which I thought was a good way to do it. So, Lawbreakers, and this should be no surprise to you, Saul, studio Boss Key Productions has announced that in response to the game not finding enough of an audience, that the studio will support the game in its current state, but will be moving on to other projects. They mentioned that they are determined to give the game a second life, but a pivot to free-to-play currently is not going to be possible due to a lack of resources and publishing planning that would be required to do so. Who knows what they're going to move on to.
What a waste of a game.
They did mention that their new projects are going to have new creative directors.
Yeah, is Cliff Bleszinski going to be in there?
I'm not sure. I think it's his studio. And I don't know. I'm pretty sure he was creative director on Lawbreakers.
He had one good run of games. That's Gears.
Unreal Tournament, to be fair.
That too, yeah.
But
I'm talking about on
recently,
Xbox.
yeah. Well, I will say I think some of where the misguidedness came from this was obviously his mouth. He's known to be
he's
crazy,
too egotistical.
But I also think that he, in his mind, he was so aware, and it turned out to not be true, I guess. But he was so sure that it was going to be able to sell just off of his name and it being a shooter game.
That game needs to be free to play, and it needs to be free to play last year. That's the thing.
And it may still be happening. What he said is the specific wording was determined to give the game a second life. But we can't stay idle while we do that. So we're going to have they probably are working on new projects to fund what they're trying to do.
Yeah, they're probably going to come out with a new project that's going to be half done, and they're going to end up using the funds that were raised by that project to put more into this one. They're going to launch a half-worked DLC plan or expansion plan for this. They're going to see that nobody comes back to it, and it's going to be free to play by the end of this year. Guarantee you.
Well, if they can, the game may just completely tank what was Battleborn.
That? Yeah, I was gonna say So
hard to say.
Battleborn did go free to play. That's the thing is even that game went free to play for a while. I think it wasn't on PS4. There was some stipulation there.
I think you said to buy it on PS4. I don't know though. I didn't play the game. I don't want to speak out of line for that. But I do remember the game had a lot of turbulence, And I don't know. Lawbreakers didn't actually release against other games. I think that Overwatch continued to stay so successful that maybe the Overwatch crowd is what pulled from Lawbreakers. I can't say. It's really an interesting thing to look at. But Saul, this should make you happy. Divinity Original Sin 2 will be coming to consoles in August of this year and is being being published by Bandai Namco.
I really hope it's done well.
That's not surprising. I mean, the first game came to PS4, and from all of the I've heard from people who've played it, they loved it.
I mean, I should rephrase that and say I really hope it performs well, like performance in the game.
Like runs on the console well, or
yeah,
like sales?
Yeah, like okay. I hope it, because I
mean, that's what I'm saying. Though everybody who played the first one when it came to console loved it, and I have never heard of any real issues with performance. So
that's a really good game. I highly recommend it. I don't know if I'll pick it up, but I definitely will. I might.
Which one are you currently playing? That one, or are you playing?
I'm playing the one that's coming to PS4.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Okay.
Yeah, it's a really, really good game.
Okay. Well, next up, and I included this one just out of the sheer craziness of it because it's been so long that they've been talking about it. But the Indiegogo funded Shaq Fu: A Legend Reborn finally has a release date. Expect to beat down the hordes of Hollywood as Shaq starting June 5th. June is starting to June is starting to be a pretty interesting month. I have Onrush that I'm really excited for coming in June. Vampire's coming in June, and Vampire man, that latest trailer looks so good. It looks
really good, actually.
Outside of it being the standard, and I'm not even hating it for it because it still looks good enough. It looks about like what you'd expect. Focus Home interactive games always tend to look just a little bit on the underside of technology where it currently sits. So it looks good enough to make me want to play it, and I'm hoping as long as the systems are fun. Remember Me was extremely fun, so I like Don't Nod, and I plan to support them. Even if the game doesn't end up going, it's still going to be a day one release for me just to show my support. Far Cry 5 is the best-selling debut of the series, more than doubling the sell-through rate of Far Cry 4, which is insane. I can't believe that, by its first week sales. So in the 1 week period, it was more than double.
Congratulations, Ubisoft.
Congratulations.
Montreal, right?
Even though I actually have to say that I thought 4 was the better game, personally. And I know that everybody stands on different sides of that. I actually think, above all, 3 is probably my favorite as a whole product. But I think if you took the smoothing out of gameplay that they did in 4, slap it with a story of 3, you have a perfect game.
I really hope that the 3... what is it? What would this even be
Classic
called?
Edition?
Yeah, Classic Edition. I really hope it looks... it actually looks good.
I'm fairly positive, like I said, that it's the PC version, which already had a thinner black outline, but still had that stylized black outline, which I want. I don't want them to take that away. I'm glad that that's there. And I'm glad that they're just porting it. If it's a port from PC, it's 1080p, 30 frames per second, likely. And even
no black outlines, no weird ratios here.
Oh, you're talking about like bars? Yeah. No, but.
You're talking about the design choice of the black outline.
Yeah,
that's right.
Yeah, which I like the black stroke.
I'm talking about there shouldn't be any kind of ratio bars at all.
Yeah, framing bars. I got you. Let's see. Last one, God of War took one of the game's designers 43 hours to complete 100%. As a designer, Cory Barlog, the game's director, mentioned that he knew what to do in the game outside of the story. He did not work on the story, but he worked on all the side quest things. So the story took him a little bit, but all the side quest stuff that would take you to 100%, he knew what to do, and it took him 43 hours. So normal players should expect an even longer time frame, which is interesting because you remember the 25 to 35 hours that he gave to PSX is now even further than that.
Yeah, so that's interesting.
So you think if it took a designer 43 hours to do it, and it takes a normal player, let's just say 50.
Yeah,
that may end up being a little higher or a little lower. That starts to push a little more. World Den was talking about he didn't know if it would interfere. Depending on the rate that people get to play games, I do think that you start to see people still playing God of War, even from people who got it at launch or near launch when Detroit comes out. I don't think they'll interfere with each other from a sales perspective because they're just different.
Yeah, enough. and there's a good month. About a month, just shy of 5 days of a month that you have to play those games.
But basically, the longer that we still start to see that God of War is being, the more interesting that becomes because that is way longer. God of War 3 is the longest in the series so far that I'm aware of, and it took about 17 hours on usual to beat. So you're more than
shorter than I thought.
You're more than doubling that, So that's pretty crazy.
That is.
Now it depends on what the story is. I feel like the story is probably in the 25-hour range,
right?
Personally,
and collectibles, and then any other kind of modes will go ahead and extend that.
Man, if the story's longer than 25 hours, that's gonna be wild.
That's gonna be I'm super excited for it. I'm really hoping the story is top notch. I'm sure it will be.
All right, so Saul, you want to move into reader mail real quick?
I sure do. We have El Chabib saying, "Hey dudes, do you see yourself gaming as you grow older? Do you think your gaming genres and habits have changed growing older? Keep up the awesome work." Well, thank you, El Chabib.
Thanks, sir.
For those that don't know, this question came from Twitter, and you can always follow us on Twitter over there at Triangle SQRD. But yeah, I don't think I'll ever quit gaming. I don't think there's another hobby in the world that can take over the amount of time that I've spent in gaming, and
Absolutely.
I don't think that it'll ever be replaced. In terms of genres going older, or as I grow older, changing, I don't really think so. I love just about every genre of gaming there is. More specifically, though, certain titles in each of those genres. So I think that I'm just going to stick with it as a whole till the end. And Brett, I'm sure you will be the same.
Okay, so mine's framed a little differently, and I think I've probably mentioned this exact reason before, but I know that as I talked to Blaze and some of my friends who asked me why I don't watch many movies or TV, it's actually that, movies and TV tend to not do as well of a job to me of giving me a story that I care about that I'm as wrapped into. Some of that comes from the nature of games, that when you build a really good narrative and story and plot on top of a gameplay system that's really fun, that you find yourself caring even more about the characters because you do feel like you have some kind of agency over them. Even though I think that they're their own characters making decisions that I feel like is right for that character, I'm still the one making the final call. It is up to me to determine what the character is in my head, which I love. So with that being said, I tend to get almost all of my stories and stuff in. Definitely because when I watch TV, I rewatch stuff all the time, like The Office and How I Met Your Mother. So
I had that already before you knew. Said The Office.
I know. But that being said, I tend to get most of my story and media interaction in terms of stories from video games.
Yeah.
And I do not see that ending anytime soon. I still just don't like I say don't like. It takes a really good TV show to make me want to just sit there and watch it. Anime tends to do that better than actual TV shows do often, but that's also because a lot of animes choose to go with more out there subject matters,
right?
Which tend to be what pulls me in, and a lot of modern TV gets me sometimes, but it tends to lose my interest eventually. So I like the ones that are more fringe. I talked about liking The Path on Hulu, and a lot of that comes from the similar reasons of what I wanted to play Far Cry with, which is the idea of cults and religious extremists and things that are either misconstrued as religious extremists. So
on a path of religious extremists, is it Outlast or is it Far Cry 5?
In terms of which one does it better?
Yeah, no, I'm talking about in terms of the path. Like, is it
like what?
Crazy
what
demon?
Is it going for? No. It's not like.
Or is it like Red State?
Okay, it's weird. I'm gonna give you a very short, and if anybody wants to check it out, very short plot synopsis. It's a group of people who are called Meyerists who worship the light, and the light is supposed to be like this thing. There's the ladder. You climb up the ladder into the light, and they have these programs that you go through, and you're on different rungs of the ladder,
so it's Scientology.
And you start to climb up it. Right? No, but there actually is it's a belief. It's not as crazy as an alien coming down, and I don't.
No, I'm just talking about
I don't quite
terms
know
of the religion, the way their religion works.
But you get into it, and now it's funny because the outside world constantly views them as cult, and they're constantly trying to say they're not cult. And when you're seeing their actions, you're like, yeah, they're not really. They don't feel cultist, right? But as you continue to watch the show, it's basically them trying to deal with that, and then also the problems that do arise in certain characters who start to. It's a lot of it just has to do with political, questioning your your religious beliefs, and how other people question your religious beliefs, and how that all comes together, and how dangerous that may feel versus how dangerous they actually are. So it's like a religious thriller.
Yeah,
I guess is the best way to kind of word it. There's a lot of ups and downs and twists that happen that kind of keep you on the edge of your seat.
So I'm kind of getting like Da Vinci Code vibes almost.
Sure.
So
not quite that.
No, I'm just talking about in terms of I like Da Vinci Code because it's about that kind of darker side of religion, and then it's a thriller at the same time. Yeah,
exactly. I think that you would actually really like it. And of course, it's got Aaron Paul. So Aaron Paul's.
Oh yeah.
It's got Jesse. It's got.
I don't know why when you said Aaron Paul, I thought of like a girl. I'm like, who was that?
No.
Yeah, we've been talking about maybe renewing Hulu again just because Superstore is a really funny show. They have Community and they have Key and Peele. So,
yeah, I got you.
Hey, Brett, Sean Sanderud writes in saying, this September has gone crazy with quality game releases.
Good
Spider-Man,
question.
Tomb Raider, and Spyro. You can only buy one of them. Which one and why?
Okay, so this is I
think our answer may be the same.
Is it?
I don't know. I want you to answer the question. We'll find
Spider-Man.
out. Yeah, it's the same.
Okay, now I will say this.
If I could only buy one, it would be Spider-Man as well.
Here's the thing. I know that I'm going to get all three of these games, right? Realistically.
I'm getting everything but Tomb Raider. I'm not playing
Okay,
Tomb Raider.
so Tomb Raider 1, I really liked. It's like if you take if you take the ideas behind Uncharted, but you give it, to be dead honest, I mean, as much as I love Uncharted, you give it better, which, I mean, Uncharted does better characters and gameplay and story, but Tomb Raider excels in the gameplay department. It feels similar, but also giving you way more depth to every system that's in the game.
Yeah.
And giving you a slight open world feature where you collect,
I never played the first two. So, like, I just don't have any interest to
play
them.
And I mean, I will say, I think you would actually like them.
I probably would. I just don't have any interest. Like, right now, especially everything going on.
Sure. But, I mean, I think if you ever get around to a chance of doing them, one was great. And Rise of the Tomb Raider was also really good. The naming structure is really weird on these, but good for them for doing something a little different than just Tomb Raider and then cool noun.
Yeah.
Or cool adverb or whatever you want to call it.
See, I would go with Spider-Man because not only is it going to keep me busy, but it releases towards the end of the month as well.
Mm-hmm.
So it's going to last me till August, and I can buy Spyro. Because, I mean, I already played Spyro, not played Spider-Man. So
wait, Spider-Man's the 17th, right?
Yeah, it's halfway through the month.
So, yeah, I mean, and Spyro's a little later. 27th, right?
Something like that. Yeah, 21st.
So, yeah, 21st. Anyway, so point being, that's on the heels of each other. But, oh, well, it's not going to really affect
anything. Yeah, like Spider-Man's a new experience. And
that's my biggest thing. I know Spyro's more of a known quantity. I am curious to see how much they're going to keep versus change. There was this cool talk they did for anybody who's interested in the tech side where they made this thing called Spyroscope for the game that basically dug into the source code of the original games and kept things like level structure and map, basically geometry that they could work out and know where the collision things were. More than that, but point being, it was made so that when they put these new assets and stuff on top, that it made the game feel as much like the originals as possible and keep this like thing. My problem with that is as much as I'm going to get Spyro, absolutely, I'm excited. It's not as big to me as Crash was. Crash was like lose my mind when they announced it. Whereas Spyro is like, I'm really excited. I'm glad to see that they're doing this with another one. And definitely with these franchises that have the ability, if they were given the right care, to be just as pertinent to gaming as like Mario and Sonic.
Right.
And I think if they continue to give them to the right teams, even new games could come out and be as relevant and to very specific forms of gamers. Like they are a little more universal, I think, because of the time that they came and you continue to build.
Right.
That they can be really important for building IPs that should have been around as mascots this whole time, but we all know gaming gets lost in the now shooters are the big thing. We're going to start doing shooters because shooters can show off our new graphics and all this stuff a lot better than these platformers could have. And some people think that platformers have got to have a cartoony look, and I mean, I do like that, but I don't think it's true either, because I think games like Enslaved, Odyssey to the West show you that you can have stylized but still more realistic looks to platforming experiences while also interjecting a little more combat and stuff in. So I don't know. It's weird to see how these things evolve, but my biggest thing with both these games is seeing where the Crash, which did it phenomenally well, and where Spyro coming back, and if Spyro does as well, do we see new games in these series instead of just old games? Because the old games can sell nostalgia. Can the new games build off of what made the old games so well and maybe we'll like them while still doing something new enough to feel useful?
I want that to be a thing. I just don't think it is. I don't think that there will be a new Crash or Spyro game that's not Skylanders. Mainly because
I'm not sure.
There's a certain magic about both of these series that they won't be able to recapture. That's just the thing.
See, they've recaptured them even when you're talking about the fact that they had to completely redesign these levels and hands up, make sure they still felt the same, and then redo certain aspects of the game, like when they redid voice acting and redid the cutscene, opening cutscene.
Right,
they kept that magic, even though they were framing it around original.
That's what I was going to say.
If you steep yourself in it enough, I do think that there's a way that, and definitely with Vicarious Visions, I think it's obvious that they were big fans and that they know what fans want and they know what they want from a Crash game. I think they could go forward with a new game and it be good. Maybe not as great as the other three, but I would settle for a new good Crash Bandicoot.
I see it as really hard when it's. I don't mean to put the company down because it's a great company. They did a really, really good job with the Insane Trilogy. But it's just kind of one of those things of where a lot of this was based off of old assets and older work. So it's almost like,
and you also run
it's going to be more harder to come up with the same kind of old style magic that these games are, but with new original levels.
So basically, the best way to word it is like you're going to be walking in the shadow of the original developers, and the fact that people love those original.
You're going to be held up to that standard. I don't think we'll ever.
And I'm not saying that's not true. I still would like to see someone try a brand new Crash game and a brand new Spyro game.
I mean, I would love to see it. I would love to see it. I don't think it'll happen.
Whether or not it happens,
I want it to.
Yeah, questionable.
Last question of the show. We have Matthew Green writing into us on Twitter. Saw on another
first-time question giver too. Thank you for checking us out, Matthew. He's a pretty new listener. So
thank you. Thank all of you guys for contributing to the show. But he says, saw on another Twitter feed and thought a good question. What's your favorite Easter egg in a game? This actually took me a while to think about.
He sent it yesterday, and I had to instantly think about what I wanted because there's a lot of cool ones, right? I mean, there's ones like I love Easter eggs before games even come out. I think that's really cool.
Like ARG?
Well, basically where they run through like they tease The Last of Us in Uncharted 3 at the very beginning when you're in the bar fight. You can look at the newspaper and it says like a fungal outbreak happened. And I was like, when I saw that, I didn't think anything of it. But then when you go back and you see in retrospect, it makes it cool, right?
Yeah.
And then even when you're playing The Last of Us and you see all the Easter eggs for like you're going to the toy store and they have the Jack and Daxter board game and like the Crash Bandicoot stuff. I was like, this is cool.
There's a Drake's reference to that game. What is it? I can't think of it.
I mean, in the toy store, there's an Uncharted Monopoly game or something like that, and
is that what it is?
Probably. I mean, I can't remember anything else outside of that, but I try and think of like my legitimate, like trying to go back, what is my favorite Easter egg in a game? A very recent memory, just because I thought it was clever for them to do, because it's not even within their own genre, but I thought it was something that was cool. Far Cry 5's use of the red balloon from it outside of the sewer grate.
That's kind of cool, yeah.
I thought that was a cool idea. I was like, I wouldn't have thought that I would see that.
Right.
Things that personally hit me, like I just thought it was really cool to do in the way that they did it. I'm going to say Uncharted 1, and it was actually, I think, in every Uncharted, if I remember right. But specifically Uncharted 1 back when it came out and I was playing it and going for the platinum, since it was one of the first games with trophies. And spoiler alert, I didn't get the platinum. I still need to, but point being, I was doing all the treasure parts, and you can find a precursor egg in that game, and I thought that was just a great mechanic way to pull this in,
right?
Where you pull it up and it's a fully rendered 3D precursor egg, and you can go around. I was like, that's awesome. I just think that's a really cool way to throw homage to your past series,
right?
Definitely when you're going in such a different direction in a way that feels like it makes sense, because how else would they have interjected that in there?
That's true. Yeah,
it's like where it felt natural.
Yeah,
that's about the only way you can do it, and it's an Easter egg because you're not going to find it. Instead of it being like a cameo like some games do, you do have to go out of your way to find it. So.
Exactly. I think mine, like I thought about this for a while. The one that just keeps jumping out, because I have a lot of favorites, but the one that keeps jumping out my mind is that going back to Halo 3, the Halo series has always had an abundance of Easter eggs in the games that are really, really cool. But in Halo 3, on like the second level, or maybe the end of the first one, there's a little door, and if you have to do something with your checkpoint, like you have to go so far forward and then come back to the door. But if you do that, it's the voice actors from the guys over at Rooster Teeth who do Red vs. Blue. They're having a conversation, and it's really cool. Because back at that time, I was a huge fan of Red vs. Blue and Rooster Teeth.
And it's one that you wouldn't necessarily expect, even though it deals with Halo. You wouldn't necessarily think that Bungie are going to sit there and be like, hey, come on.
And the crazy thing about it is like I found out about it, not by reading online what it was, by a friend telling me, just go do that and see what it is. And it was really cool.
Oh, so they didn't even ruin it for you.
Yeah,
that's cool.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So like that's the one that like keeps popping out in my mind.
Good question.
Thank you guys for taking the time out to ask us questions on Twitter. Remember, if you did ask us a question and you don't see it answered here, we are storing it in a bank for a bonus episode at the end of the month for a reader mail episode.
Yeah,
we are now using those bonus monthly.
Yeah, so that's actually one thing that we want to be. Every month we'll have guaranteed one bonus episode of the show. It will be, and that, of course, maybe not everybody wants to hear this. I mean, in terms of what we're doing, in terms of will participate and watch it. But point being, for those who do want to find a little bit more about our personal lives and our personal opinions on things that are gaming related that maybe we've not covered, or things that are just in our general life, we want to do this monthly.
And since
Ask
they're
us
bonus
anything,
episodes,
basically.
Yeah, since they're bonus episodes, they're not going to have any sort of news drop, anything like that, because it's going to be covered in the episode that it follows behind. So it's literally just going to be an episode to come hang out, listen to any of us ask questions. So that's why we always tell everybody on Twitter, always just ask us a question when you see that tweet come up. We try to do it a full day ahead of recording. You may not see your answer there, but you will hear your answer one at the end of the month at least. And we do have quite a few that we're going to be doing. So just don't be afraid. Come hang out with us. Listen to us answer the questions that you guys are giving us. And as always, like we always tell people to hop down in the comments, don't be scared to to conversate with anybody down there. And we rarely have people comment on our videos, and it'd be nice to see people having conversations. Did you agree with us on this topic this week? What are some features you want in the PS5? Always feel free to do that. It's always great to see. I'm down there in my own little personal YouTube account. Brett is down there in the Nartech account. I figured I'd just use mine since it's easier to distinguish us. And, we always like to conversate with you guys. So with that being said, the main topic.
Main topic is, some of you may have seen, I know we've talked about it with some people in the Discord, there have been rumors going around of PS5 that are trying to run from an actual source that is somewhat credible. They have mentioned they basically leaked some things that end up coming to fruition in the past, which always helps just build a track record. So important for, that kind of stuff to know. But with that said, some of it's pretty interesting. So one of the things about the rumor is actually talking about the fact that there are a couple, or even a decent amount of developers that actually do have PS5 dev kits. So that means that people are able to play around with at least what the proposed specs are, which are subject to change. Even people working on early PS4 dev kits, initially early on, the PS4 was spec'd out to have 4 gigs of RAM.
Now
I think, and with feedback from developers, it bumped to 8. I could be wrong on that. It may be that it had 8 gigs the whole time, but I'm fairly positive it wasn't. And it was also feedback from developers that made them go with DDR5
right,
instead of DDR3 RAM, which this is spec talk that may not be, some of you may not care or know much about. But point being, specs are subject to change always. So even though devs are working on it, it may not mean that they're making full-scale games. It may be devs kits out just to see what the current specs are and what devs may want and like or dislike about that current dev kit. That could be one thing. It could actually be the plan specs that could still have room to change, and just letting devs get early starts on projects that would make sense for next gen. With all that things being said, that's not hard to believe. That part of the rumor does seem to be the thing that would come to fruition to be true most. Now, rumors have kind of been bouncing around about dev kits going out, but this is the first time we've seen a rumor that I'm aware of that actually says that dev kits are on them. They are making things on them.
And they curious as to who has them.
See, I think so too. You start to think about the devs that would be I would almost guarantee
Square would have one for sure.
Yeah, I don't know about Square. I think Insomniac would be one of the very first people to get it.
Well, do you think so? Do you think they're already working on their next big game?
Well, maybe not, but that doesn't mean that they're not working on a dev kit to give Sony feedback.
That's true.
And it depends on what are the dev kits out for right now. You know what I mean? And I'm sure. Insomniac has a great relationship with Sony, so it wouldn't surprise me to hear that. I think Quantic Dream would be one of the teams to first get one and see what they can do with it, because I think Quantic Dream have shown that they have incredible. They really know what they're doing on the tech side in terms of how to leverage that tech to get the best out of it. I think that them being the ones to do this and say, hey, Sony, here's our thoughts on it, and they have a close relationship too. Now, these are people who are second party that I think it makes sense to why they would have it. Now, in terms of first party teams, you would think most first party teams have it. One more second party or third party developer, whatever you want to call it. Kojima Productions seems like a pretty early hit for.
Honestly, I'm with this specific rumor this popping up. I'm almost certain that Death Stranding is a PS5 game.
I still don't know. I think that there's more of a reason to believe it may be, and it may be across generational, which seems weird because I don't know. The wording has been very odd. Did they actually say first to PlayStation, or did they say first to play, or exclusive to PlayStation, or exclusive to PlayStation 4?
Now that's a good point, because memory right now fails me.
I can't remember right now either, because I do know that one of the things that could lead, some people talk about Final Fantasy VII's remake coming and being this, coming so late that it ends up being a PS5 game, but the wording around it actually would support that it wouldn't be Square changing a promise, because what they said is first to PlayStation.
Right.
So what does that mean? First to PlayStation 5? First to PlayStation 4? It's not specific enough to put them into a hole.
The timed console exclusivity on that.
Yeah, and that's probably what they would word it as regardless. But regardless, when you're looking at them, you start dealing with that and going, it's negative 25.
Oh, okay.
Anyway, so when you're dealing with that stuff, it starts to be like, why do people have it versus who would have it? So on the third-party side or second-party studio side, I think those make really good sense to be very early people. Even Rockstar, I think, wouldn't be out of the game. That would be an obvious people for it to go to. But Naughty Dog, first party, would absolutely have it. I think that there's an argument to be made that maybe Sucker Punch would have it, and that
I think
Ghost of Tsushima may be a cross-platform game.
That's another
I would hope they wouldn't, because one of the things that Sony's really good about, and that they didn't do with the PS3, PS4, even though they could have, they did remaster games to PS4, but they did not make games that straddle the line that were actually considered like, oh, at launch they're going to do both, or at launch there'll be a month window where it comes out on PS4 first, and then PS5 will come out a month later and it'll launch on their day one. Sony's not much for doing that. I like that. I want to see them fully leverage the system. So if they're putting it on PS5, I want it to be a PS5 game and fully show me what a PS5 can do.
Yeah, like I don't want it to be
early stages, like what
cross-gen console games always leave a bad taste in my mouth.
But you see, you tend not to see them from first-party developers.
Exactly, yes.
You tend to see that from third-party who are trying to get their game on as many platforms as possible and can give a game a slight bump while also saying, okay, hey, here, it is on PS4 for people who don't want to buy it on PS3. If you leave it stranded on one system, you're going to, from a third-party perspective, it makes more sense. But that being said, I want to talk a little bit about what the rumors are outside of just the fact that there are dev kits out. So one of the things out right now is that they've talked about the fact that not only are dev kits out, but there is a suggested release date.
Which is nuts, because I don't think I believe this.
Okay, so here, I'm going to tell you. A tweet by semi-known video game tipster Marcus Sellers, this is how this started, has suggested that PS5 dev kits went out to third-party devs at the start of 2018. I'm fine with that. I think that makes total sense. That stays in line with my personal calendar that I've been keeping in my mind, which is the idea that Sony is going to release the PS5 in late 2019 around the November window and announce it in early February around the same time that they did with the PS4. Now, that doesn't mean they'll follow through with that. I think it's reasonable to say that they would also bring the PS5 out to where they show it in November and then release it in like the March range.
Right.
I don't know. Maybe like they show it in September, October. But why would you? The only reason I would go against that is why would you want to announce a console in the middle of a bunch of games releasing?
Yeah, that. It almost seems.
March has pretty much become Sony's de facto area for their exclusives anyway. So wouldn't it make sense to, alongside their exclusive releases and all of the window that they've built up, to also show their new console?
Well, and I'm curious too, because like that definitely does seem like their time of the year. Like if anything, it's almost grown accustomed to me that when the beginning of the year, Sony, like that's it. Like they're gonna have these great games that are gonna come out later on in the year, but I can almost always, based on the last 2 years, expect something great from.
Yeah,
Sony.
Really, even longer than that. I think that they already kind of started to have that window with The Last of Us coming out in May or April. I can't remember which one it was back when it originally launched. I think it was originally supposed to be April and it delayed to May. But point being, that same year, that February before they announced the PS4, there's Uncharted came out in an April time frame. Ratchet and Clank came out in that April-March time frame. So, you see them constantly giving their exclusives this release window. So it would make sense to me for that to be how they're going to continue to play things. So with that being said, they're out. Okay, yeah, right. Sure. People have got third-party dev kits. Now, this is what he says, is that... Now, it's funny, people often say that. But one of the things they mentioned is that they still say that Sony has a planned release window or a possible release window of 2018.
Which is nuts. I don't believe that at all. I believe that late 2019 is the earliest we're going to see it.
Here's the bigger thing.
Here's the bigger thing. The earliest we're going to get it.
Why would devs just now be getting dev kits? So, see, it's part of where the rumor doesn't even make sense within its own self to me. Why would you send developers dev kits to make a game? Let's just say they went out even January 1st. Every developer that was going to make a game for launch would have one January 1st.
Right.
Let's say that they release the console on December 31st. It won't happen, but let's just say it.
Right.
All right, so that's at least the same calendar year. You're telling me you're going to give these guys just shy of a full calendar year to make an entire game for PS5? That doesn't even add up.
No, especially with a lot of these people, they're already working on these other games, and that's where this kind of mysterious entity comes over this all is that like, is Ghost currently being worked as a cross-gen game? We don't know. Like, is it currently like have they had a dead kit for quite a while now?
Oh, Ghost of Tsushima. Yeah, there's no way to tell. Now, I do feel fairly positive in being able to say that it's not. Ghost of Tsushima will not be a cross-gen game. It will either be PS4 or it'll be a PS5.
We haven't even gotten full in-game screenshots of that game, though, have we? Like, we've seen concept art, but I don't think we've gotten...
Yeah, and we got the trailer. But yeah, I mean, it does feel like a game that's far out. But I will say this. The same thing happened with Spider-Man, and Spider-Man's now releasing in a 1.5 year window from announcement.
Well, yeah, I guess that's true. I didn't think about that.
I think it's...
Same, no,
now, we had
PSX, right?
gameplay, or at least what they said. But what'd you say?
I said Ghost. I mean, yeah, Ghost was at PSX, right?
Well, Paris Games Week, PGW.
Gotcha. Okay. So I'm curious, is that like, are they saving something because they are doing it? Like, are they saving it to release on PS5? Like, are they going to release this on PS4?
It's hard to say.
We're gonna get a big blowout announcement at E3, like, hey, this is coming out in November.
Maybe, but here's my...
It just seems so far off.
This E3, I still don't think. I mean, if that announcement was to come, it would be after the PS5's already been announced or alongside the PS5 announcement. But with that being said, I mean, Sony, we know, are one for giving swan songs on PlayStation. I mean, while Xbox hadn't already had a single exclusive like the last 1.5 years of its console life, Sony the same year... I mean, maybe Forza, but...
I was like Cuphead.
Okay. Well, no. I'm talking about Xbox 360 and Xbox One. I apologize. Thank you for making me specify there. But with that being said, when we were going from the PS360 generation to the Xbox One and PS4 generation, we saw Microsoft had already backed far away from doing console exclusives, and they were just keeping their third-party publisher, things going along forward. Now, what did we see Sony do in contrast? We saw Sony release not only The Last of Us and God of War Ascension.
Right.
I say God of War Ascension. Yeah, it was 2012 or 2013. One of the two. I'm pretty sure it was 2012 now that I think about it. But regardless, in that last year, you saw 3 big name games that could have easily been PS4 launch games and would have helped them. It was March 12th, 2013. So you had Beyond Two Souls, you had The Last of Us, and you had God of War Ascension. 3 big name exclusives from big developers that could have made the PS4's launch even bigger. But what did they do? They wanted to do PS3 and keep that swan song on PS3. It was smarter for them. It gives them more of a sell-through rate. Last of Us sold so well because of that.
And then they eventually, they probably have the plans already that's like, we're going to take advantage of this new hardware. We're going to make a remake of it or remaster of it. And then they'll sell that much many more.
Yeah,
because for people like me, like you, like Seth, that we all loved Last of Us on PS3, bought it again on PS4.
Yeah, and it got
because it's just a game we're buying again.
Yeah, and they gave it like another 1.5-2 million copies sold, something like that.
I'm curious because I wonder if Ghost could fall in that realm. I wonder if
it comes on PS4 and then it relaunches on PS5.
Because how long was it in the PS5's life that The Last of Us came out? Like
PS4's,
6
you
months?
mean? Yeah.
Yeah, PS4. My bad.
It was launch year.
Okay, yeah. So
I would say,
curious if that could happen or if that would happen. I would hope, like. I would think that maybe they were scared of backlash. Like, oh, you just launched this game and we bought it for PS4. Like, you could have launched this on PS5 and we would have bought it on launch. But when you think about it, when was the last time we saw Sucker Punch?
Now very beginning of the console.
Exactly. So
cycle.
Like,
so I mean,
with a big entry of infamous, I want to say Last Light.
Yeah, infamous Sega Son. Now, technically, the last time we really saw them was Last Light, but that was a smaller team working on that.
And that was like what, a 4
or at least it was a very
DLC?
It was a very scoped
standalone, right?
Yeah. No. Yes,
it was standalone.
Okay,
I remember seeing the case for it somewhere.
By the way, The Last of Us came out in July 2014, so just over a year after the original release. Yeah.
So I could almost see that. I could almost see Ghost specifically going 2 ways.
It's so weird to say Ghost because I keep thinking Call of Duty Ghost. I'm like,
I had to push that out of my head the first couple of times I said it too. But yeah, like I almost want to say that that's going to be a launch. If by the way, we're speculating here that this console's coming out by 2020. I'm assuming it's going to come out in 2020, but now with this new dev kit information, it very well could be sometime next year.
Okay, so here's one of the things that we've got to talk about sooner rather than later, right? Is all the games that Sony have announced that we do know for sure are coming to PS4, that some of them still aren't out.
Spider-Man.
Yeah, so you have all these games going all the way into 2018, right?
Right.
Really hot release schedule.
Right.
All right. Why would they release console this year? That goes to show our support. That goes to show our support that there's no way. All right. No. So now you continue to push out. We know that The Last of Us Part 2 is a PS4 game. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. We just know.
Yeah.
I mean, they've basically said we're going to see it
I
again,
think that'll
right?
be the last.
We know that Days Gone is a PS4 game.
Hopefully so, yeah.
Right? Well, no, I mean, we know. I think
never got a release date, though, right?
No, I'm fairly positive it's going to be very early in the 2019 calendar. But here's my thing. They moved it because it's new IP and they know it's going to go up against other things. Now, regardless, it's going up against too much stuff. And now that we're seeing all these games coming with Spider-Man and Dreams isn't even on the calendar, but they're saying it's a this year release.
It has to be December.
Right? So you have all these games that we don't even have release dates for. Dreams, The Last of Us, Days Gone. Those are 3 at least, right? And depending on what they announce at E3 this year, they're going to have some kind of big announcement for E3, right? What do they announce if it's not going to be even let's just say that the PS5 comes out in November. What do they announce now?
Yeah, like they can't announce anything that would come to that would make sense.
It would have to come out within the calendar year of E3 to E3, right?
Which is why I would think that like
if now I do think that there's room to believe that we could still see PS5 come out in November, but I'm even starting to try to think of ways that the PS5 release date starts moving a little further because
I mean, even
this E3 makes it so weird because I'm trying to think of what they announced.
I don't even want to think of it at this E3. Like maybe they announce it and then it's like coming November 2019, and then that actually like
now they don't need to do that because that is exactly what Xbox did with the Scorpio, and I think that was a big failure because not only did they announce Scorpio,
this is just me mentally processing.
Sure, but I'm gonna finish that thought real quick. The Microsoft announced Scorpio and had this lofty video from the developers about what it was supposed to be.
Oh no!
And then what did we get? Not what they said we were going to get. Like, realistically, not what they said we were going to get. And they continued to flip flop because of the fact that they had a year and a half to release of the console. That they kept changing this. The marketing messaging started getting a little fuzzy and weird, and they started flipping 4K on things, and then it started being like, "Oh, it's going to be true 4K," and then every game will be true 4K.
I read online that they're saving grace with the words true 4K is that like some of the textures in the games are true 4K. And they never specified what was true 4K. Because somebody actually was bringing up a good point of, aside from the couple
texture resolution is actually an interesting way to go about that from a technical side. Texture resolution, you can put a game in, and actually that's what the PS4 Pro does. Some PS4 Pro games, definitely from first party,
textures are 4K.
The textures are not 4K, but they're just bigger. They're higher resolution textures. That way, when they do checkerboard or upscale or whatever they're doing to 4K, they look better. Now, some PS4 games, when it upscales to 4K, doesn't do anything. It's the exact same textures of the 4K resolution on the final render, right?
Right.
But with that being said, what Xbox is trying to do from a textures perspective is there, but they had enough time to screw around with their messaging, whereas Sony, with this very clear, here's February, not only are we talking about what's inside of the system and what the system's going to do, we're not going to show the box. We're going to be very specific with our thing, and through this next 10 months, or I guess technically 9 months, throughout this next 9 months, we're going to give you the very first announcement is what it's going to be. Don't worry about what it's going to look like because it doesn't even matter at that point.
Yeah, that comes at PSX 6 months down the road
or E3, depending on when they announce it. But it's like, why do you need that? So instead, we're going to talk about what's the innards of the system. What can this system do? What is this system leveraging for developers that the last system could not do, and why should we care? All right, those are the things that you kind of want to cover with an announcement, which is exactly in direct contrast to what the Xbox One announcement was.
Right.
So with that being said, we kind of know that Sony understands that is the way you try and move forward, unless they've completely lost their mind, which is possible. But if that's going to be the way they go forward, then they don't need this year and a half long thing. Now, that's just in response to the idea of the Xbox thing. The Scorpio was a horrid announcement, and giving it that much time just set weird expectations.
So like, how would you feel? Like, in a realistic world, this sounds like this could actually work. At PSX, they announce it.
Sure.
But nothing's shown. E3, they show... And over the course of this time,
now hold on, you're saying PSX this year they announced it, so we're talking December 2018 they announced the console.
So then,
when is your release window? Still November 2019?
I would still say November 2019.
I think it's a great release window. So, it's for the most part, it's after all the big games have come out,
and then it gives stuff for PSX to be able to look forward to. They can show off games there for that. That's
True.
Like you're actually getting stuff. It's a month later. Here's what you're going to be getting
on this console. You actually do have, yeah.
So then, of course, over the time, Sony may hold a conference here and there, or maybe just one conference and show you the innards, and then at E3, good old Mark Cerny. I don't know why I keep saying that. He walks out on stage. You're like, oh, look, it's Mark. And then all of a sudden, Andrew House walks out on stage. You're like, what's he doing here?
That would be more weird because Andrew House is resigning.
That's why I said, what's he doing there? And then they have like this thing on the stage, and they pull back this cloth, and that's what it looks like. And then you get some snippets of games that are coming out. Because when I think about Ghost of Tsushima, I don't think... Like, I think that even November next year is a crazy date. Like, that's
for that game. It just
too
depends
close to me.
Because here's the thing: that could be another swan song, right? Because
it could be, yeah.
Let's think about it. So November next year, that's a year and a half from now, right?
Right.
And we heard about Ghost of Tsushima in around the
5 months
August
ago.
September window of last year. So
did we? Yeah, we did.
Yeah. Now and then we had the PGW. I mean, then we had the PSX panel, which didn't show anything more, which I was actually a little bit surprised at. But let's just say E3 this year comes and we see Last of Us 2 gameplay, we see Ghost of Tsushima gameplay, and then by, let's just say, summer of 2019, Ghost is ready and ready to go. And it and Days Gone and The Last of Us are the three that mirror God of War, The Last of Us, and Beyond. Now, those are the three that kind of mimic that. Here's our last three big things that show that we still support PS4, and here's our last three swan songs for the system.
Got it then. I got what's perfect.
Now, Dreams is still somewhere magically mixed up in this. But.
December, I would say. This December. But it would be so cool. Like, and of course, I was joking with the Andrew House thing. It would be cool to see him again. I don't.
Oh, yeah, I do like
him again.
I'm going to miss him.
But it would be cool for Mark to be on stage, or even Sean. Yeah. And then let you know that there is backwards compatibility. Like, okay, so you may be excited for these games coming out. This could be at the end of the conference. Like, you're seeing that Ghost is coming out. You're seeing in a month, and then you're seeing that, Last of Us 2 is coming out for a month in PlayStation. Well, don't worry, because in November, if you pick up a PlayStation 5, you can seamlessly play these games with the disc inserted. And it worked perfectly fine, because hardcore people, like most of the people who listen to us, and then of course us, we're gonna go buy a PS5, and then if it reads PS4 disc, it
why not just play it on that? Yeah,
exactly. So that would be my dream. I don't think that would happen, but
there's no way to tell, dude. Backwards compatibility still stands. Like, so many people are saying it's this easy thing. And while I do think it's easier than what the PS3 to PS4 jump was going to be,
yeah, it's still gonna. It's not out of reach, but it's still like, don't get your hopes up about it.
Because it depends on how far they want to push technology. But that being said, here's my dream. We're talking about crazy things they do, right? You're talking about Andrew House coming out on stage. What I want to see is Mark Cerny come up on stage, right? And he's talking about, he says, thanks for joining us today. Or actually, let's just say, instead of being Mark Cerny at first, right? It's Sean Layden. Sean comes up.
I said Shane, yeah. But Sean,
so Sean, or maybe Sean comes up. He's like, hey, thanks for coming today. Thanks for joining us. We've got some exciting stuff to share. And there's a curtain, right? And you're like, what's going on with this curtain? And then they open it up, and it's Mark Cerny, and Kevin Butler's back, boy.
Oh, my gosh.
And now that would never happen because of the lawsuit. I'm about 99% sure he wouldn't want to work with them again.
And then on the screen flashes a game that everybody's been wanting, The Surge 2, The Surgeoning.
Well, The Surge 2 has been announced. Let's go.
Oh, no, it hasn't.
Yes, it has.
No, it hasn't.
Yes, it has. I talked about it on this show, Saul. But more importantly,
I blocked that memory out so bad.
Yes, you did. No. Then guess who's sitting across from them? Gabe Newell. Guess what game's on screen?
Half-Life
3. All right. All that being said, we haven't went into yet the specs for the leaked
proposed specs.
Yeah, and now these are interesting for a number of reasons. One thing I want to check out real quick was...
It's good to see they're going with AMD again. Or an AMD architecture.
Yeah, I mean, I'm fairly positive. They don't want to work with NVIDIA because NVIDIA are trying to gouge price-wise. So I think it makes sense. Now, who knows? With AMD bouncing back up, anything could happen. But I'm looking to see...
They got them good drivers, though.
So... And it's not impossible by any standard. That's why I think this is interesting. So the specs that we see right now, and they're not complete specs with clock, speeds or anything like that, but it at least gives us some architecture specs. So this has some credibility again because they leaked the Nintendo Switch and the PS4. This is the same people, just to reiterate that.
Right.
The site, semi-accurate, that leaked it, claimed that Sony will continue working with AMD, just like Saul said, and that the PS5 will be using AMD Navi. Now, Navi's already been announced.
It's unknown though.
Same.
We don't know what this architecture is holding right now. There's a lot of speculation.
Yeah,
but nobody has the results. They don't have anything about this.
But here's what's interesting. So the Jaguar architecture, and I was wrong on thing. I for some reason thought Jaguar was already outdated by the time that it got into PlayStations. But Jaguar started.
It came out like 2013,
12. No, mid 2013. So that was about in the same timeline, right? Now the way that
wow, that's impressive how they got that in the system like that.
Well, I mean, I'm sure they already knew about it. And,
well, no, I'm saying just like it's impressive that they had that chip in the system to launch in that year.
Yeah. I'm sure the chip was already planned, right? And it's just like, hey, here's what we have planned. This is what we can build. Now, that being said, because of the mobile nature of it, I mean, consoles to an extent were weak with the specs they had versus and it was a huge jump for consoles in terms of like the amount of RAM and all this stuff. But that was more like how can you multitask on the system. So we still need to see graphical output changing. So going with Navi would make sense, at least to follow the Jaguar thing, where in the same year of release, Jaguar is planning to release by the end of this calendar year. So that's one thing I could actually see them going, okay, well, maybe that's why they think there's a 2018, or maybe the rumor was misheard or misconstrued to think that they're talking about Navi releasing this year and that the PS5 would release this year because of that. Who knows?
And that's
if Navi releases
thing
at the end of this year, right, and it's still in PS5, great. It's a current up-to-date chipset. Cool. Now, who knows what AMD's doing with Navi? That's going to be a lot. And what they said for the CPU side is that it will have an AMD Zen CPU architecture, which is common in computers now, and it's AMD's newest processor.
Which is good because not only is it like the new APUs are pretty decent.
Yeah,
and that's the thing is that like
now here's what's interesting though. If it's having Navi graphics and Zen CPU, that means that it's not. At least within reason, and World End, please make sure I'm right on this. This is not an APU.
Yeah.
This is dedicated GPU, dedicated CPU.
Yeah, World,
which will make a huge difference if that's what this is getting at. Into what power this system will have versus.
It'll be nuts.
Now, it's a very interesting way to see these specs going. I think that they fall in line. I would have hoped forever that, I mean, with Zen being the new processor chipset that they're going with, that they would have some form of Zen in the PS5. I've said that.
They're so limited, though. Which is what you get in consoles, and you get mobile processors.
And a lot of it comes down to trying to keep power regulation under, right? And also definitely on the PS4, they were trying to make sure that they didn't have to have an external power brick.
Which I wouldn't have minded. Like,
oh honestly, yeah, but I mean, it's nice to be honest. Even when I had an Xbox One, the power brick's annoying as hell. I hate it.
It's like the same thing on the Xbox 360 though.
It's huge and it won't go behind my stuff.
Yeah, but that's also a very easy problem to fix. I'm sure you can find some place to hide it out of sight.
I don't know. I just don't like it. That's all I'm getting at. So I would.
My monitor has a power brick.
Yeah, it's small to be fair. Mine does too. It's like an inch tall and like 2 inches.
Like mine's like 4 inches wide
or something.
Yeah, like 2 inches thick. But like that's a good question. Like for those that are listening, let us know in the comments. Do you care about the way your console looks? Like if you had a big console, does it matter to you? And have you bought a console based off of its looks?
Yeah, well, one more thing I want to talk about from the insides, because, I mean, a lot of that's up to speculation. And I mean, yes, I want to see a big jump. I mean, if you want to talk about RAM, who knows with what we're going to see on RAM?
The fact that there's GDDR5 in the systems now, RAM is so ridiculously overpriced.
But you know about HBM RAM, right?
Right.
All right, so, but people were going all towards HBM RAM. Now it seems like they're kind of backing off of HBM RAM. There's no telling what's going to be in it, right? So here's a bigger question. If it's GDDR5, how much, right? Minimum 12, recommended in my opinion 16.
And I wonder if at Foxconn or somebody they have deals with the manufacturers, because for 16 gigabytes of GDDR4 in my computer.
Well, that's DDR4 though.
Right.
That is different.
I know, but I'm just saying like it's expensive now. And like I'm wondering,
GDDR5 has been being made, so if you stick with GDDR5, if they did, you would deal with the production cost being down because of so.
Good. Okay.
That's
so
we're
one
not
thing.
Seeing
a $600
because you're still seeing a lot of people on CPUs that and motherboards that support DDR3. That's why DDR4 is still expensive.
Yeah.
But that being said, one of the other things I did want to talk about, and this makes perfect sense in line with what I would imagine Sony would do. VR has done very well this generation. With this PS5, he's saying that the PS5 will have VR goodies baked in to the processor on the chipset. Now, that makes sense. I don't see why they wouldn't. If you think about this, the Vita announced, right? The Vita came out. The Vita did not have great remote play with PS3, but it has perfect remote play within reason, depending on what you're doing.
With the PS4.
With what you'd expect. Every game is pretty much remote playable on PS4. That's because the PS4 shipped with the stuff to do that, the internals to do that on the chip. It would make the most sense for Sony's next VR iteration to already be baked into the console. That way people do not have to have this breakout box. It doesn't have to do any of this stuff
like they have now.
They can already have 3D audio work in to it. You'd have all these things. I mean, it would make VR more attractive. Less cable management would be ideal. Wireless probably is still not going to be seen, but if we can get down to very thin weightless wires that don't inhibit the experience, that would be great.
I think the new Vive is wireless, but it's like $1,100.
Regardless, my point being, you obviously want to see them keep that price range that they did with PSVR while also making the experience better. One of the ways to do that, as I've said, is to get rid of the move tracking. Smart on them to use move tracking with the VR because they got to reuse technology that they had invested a lot of money into that did not see a return of investment. Now they're seeing the return of investment. They can take that, go, that's a wash, where we've kind of covered that. How are we going to move forward and what are we going to do it with? Now, if they keep the lights, multi-camera tracking is something that I think is extremely important and one of the biggest reasons that the PlayStation does wrong, but also drift, like where it doesn't happen to me often, but every now and then you're playing a game,
you get that just
it'll just drift from you. And it's like,
it's kind of disorienting.
It doesn't quite know where I'm at. For some reason, it's moved where it thinks I'm at.
That happened to me like only once, I think, when I was playing yours, and it wasn't bad. I'm still one of those people though. I'm not like a firm fan of VR. Like it's not a big thing to me. I don't plan on getting VR.
I enjoy it. I enjoy it, and I really supported it more from a cutting edge technology kind of thing. And I think that it was really ballsy of Sony to be the only console manufacturer to come out with not a partnership, but instead their own solution that was the most cost effective version.
It might have been because
here's the thing, you're still seeing it. They're getting support. Sometimes they're getting support after.
I'm pretty sure there's more VR games on the drop than there is PS4 games this week.
Yeah, so those things being said, it all lines up to, I think that the majority of these rumors are true, right? I think that there's a very high chance people have dev kits, and this is more of a summary. People very likely have dev kits. How many? Who knows? I think that the fact that they would go with Navi and Zen and go with a dedicated GPU and CPU makes sense, right? That's the next big jump. Stop relying on APUs. All right. When you go away from that, I think that having baked in VR, considering how successful and how much more successful Sony wants VR to be, again, makes sense. And you can improve this next iteration. You can make VR even better, even more accessible, make it more lightweight on your head, more comfortable, less wire management. Get even more games and even better tracking so that you continue to iterate on these games, maybe even get more of your first-party studios in on making these VR games or making games VR compatible, though I think making a VR game from the ground up makes more sense. But the only part of the rumor that tends to fall flat for me is the idea of a 2018 release date. Now, I don't know quite why the rumor has been construed that way, and if it has something to do with the fact that Navi
mix up a Navi and
or it may just be bad info. It may be someone who said, it's going to release this year. It's a rumor, and rumors tend to come from sources, right? So we have a source here who spread the rumor, but that the source that spread the rumor has their own source that gave them this information where they were comfortable enough to feel like this was okay for them to leak and be credible on. Because that's one of the things that is weird about these things, is that they kind of live and die based off of their credibility. And if you're going to be a rumor mill, you do have to have at least parts of credibility that continue to carry through for people to give you the time of day.
Yeah.
So we're seeing that here. This is someone who's done that multiple times, where they've given some information that turned out to be true. Whether it was good guesses or accurate information, and then some inaccurate information is yet to be seen. Who knows?
And it won't be seen for quite a while either, it sounds like.
Yeah.
At least, maybe E3, but more so PSX and then next year.
The latest I can imagine, the earliest, I guess would be the way to word it. The earliest I can imagine a PS5 announcement would be PSX.
Exactly.
That would be wild, though. And I think it makes way more sense to give PS5 its own event, just like they did with PS4, where it's unapologetically about PS5, and there's no other stuff to mix into it. Now, if they chose to do that at PSX this year, and PSX was like, hey, look, all the games that we've announced at E3 and stuff will be on the play floor. This is still going to be a player-based show where you can see all these things, and we may have separate panels that touch base on games that are coming out, but the keynote itself is going to be just that. Now, that doesn't make sense to me, because that is more of an event. If you're talking about revealing a console, that's an event that you want press at and media at, not an event that you're necessarily worried about people being at. Now, a ballsy move on Sony's part to say that no, PS5 on launching is something that we want to do with our core user base who comes to this, that'd be ballsy.
Yeah.
And there are still obviously media that come there. That would be a cool way, maybe a really good faith thing, like, oh man, they care about their fans enough to do it at a Fan of Ace event. And who knows how hands-on they'd be able to get? Probably not at all. But my point being, if they chose to do that, that'd be wild. I don't think they will. I still do think it'll have a carry. It'll carry over to next year and have its standalone event. But yeah, the latest I can see an announcement happening this year that I hope, if it was going to happen this year, would be PSX. If we see an announcement at E3 and they don't give a release window of early next year, which I don't want, to be honest, which I actually is not going to happen with the game slated. It's just not.
No.
So
that'd be very surprised.
I don't even want them to announce it at E3. I just keep it out of the mind, keep it out of the. Don't even talk about the possibility of it. Leave it alone. Don't do this. PS5's coming, and it's going to be a really tour de force.
Yeah, we've seen the same thing with Final Fantasy VII and Kingdom Hearts. I still don't believe Kingdom Hearts is coming out this year. All this stuff said 2018. I still don't believe it.
Regardless.
Until I have it in my hands.
Wrapping it up, Saul, is there any final thoughts that you think, or do you think I kind of hit the head on the nail?
No, yeah, I pretty much agree with everything. I think
nail on the head.
Nail on the head, yeah. I pretty much agree with everything. I think that we'll see it sooner or later, more later. Not quite 2018 like these rumors are construing. But yeah, I'm excited for it.
Most excited thing that the rumor is for you? Like, what's the most exciting part? The fact that
just seeing a new AMD architecture that's not an APU.
Okay, yeah, I would actually agree that my favorite part of this is the idea of a dedicated GPU and CPU. I think that sounds crazy, and that seems like a big step forward for consoles.
It does. That's why I'm kind of like questionable. Like, do people care about the console sizes and stuff? Because these will be bigger.
As someone who also does really enjoy like tech side and seeing people work with tech, it is pretty exciting to me to see people having the dev kits in and actually possibly working on PS5 games. So with that, we will move on to, we would like to hear from y'all and see, what do you guys think is the most exciting part of these rumors if they turn out to be true? I mean, I can almost guarantee that 2018 is out the window. So I'm going to say very boldly, and I think very rightly, that you can cut that. But outside of that, I mean, do you think it's most exciting that from a technical standpoint, if you follow that, do you think that's most exciting? Do you like the back idea of developers having this and being able to mess with it and the possibility of games already being made for this console? Are you excited just that there's a PS5 in general, whereas Xbox seems to be going towards the idea of constantly iterating instead of doing a real jump forward, here's my next gen? Let us know in the comments. Let us know on Twitter. Get with us. Email us, whatever you want to, however you want to contact us. We'd love to hear it. If you like this video or if you like the podcast, consider subscribing to us. Give us a review if you're on iTunes or any of those podcast services, and get us rated higher so people can find us easier and tell us what we're doing right, tell us what we're doing wrong. We'd love to hear it. And until then, Saul, I think I will see you and everyone else next week. I may even see you throughout the week. It's been rare here lately, but I'd like to see you.
Yeah, that's something we need to fix.
If nothing else, we'll hang out Wednesday. But until then, we'll see y'all next week. This has been Triangle Squared. Thank you.
Thank you guys for everything.